This photo shows Jewish partisans caught up in guerrilla action against Nazi occupation. The woman in leopard print is Faye Schulman, who, in her early 20s, would bring to life a story that would otherwise have been lost to time. When looking through the stories of history, within all the astonishing world events and momentous moments that still shape our lives today and determine how we got to where we are, hidden in minute detail like a single brushstroke on a painting of wider world events, amongst a sea of countless other unique tales lost to time, are stories such as this of Faye. Casting away from the high-flying bird's-eye view of world events and delving into these individual stories, the true human experience can be found. Stories of tragedy, hardship, and the resilience of the human spirit. Sometimes, when looking back through history, there is a person who is placed in the position to capture snapshots of these moments. They provide us just a glimpse into the fringes of world events, illustrating what it means to live through these times, hopefully giving us inspiration to learn from their bravery, resilience, and character of heart, so that we might do the same. One such individual is Faye Schulman. In 1942, with the world engulfed with war, far from the war rooms of London, pristine hallways of the White House, and battlegrounds of the Pacific, was a 22-year-old who would otherwise be looking to have a life like any other. Born to a large Jewish family in 1919 in Lenin, Poland, Faye worked with her brother, managing a photography business, spending days in dark rooms developing images. However, like countless others unlucky enough to be caught in the gears of history, Faye was caught in a time and place that, through no fault of her character or actions, found herself persecuted for something she could not help by those who should have been knowledgeable enough to know better, but who harboured hate in their hearts. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. They justified the action by arguing Poland was persecuting ethnic Germans living there and claiming that the country was planning, alongside Great Britain and France, to encircle and dismember Germany. A false reasoning eerily similar to the events today. Against some brave resistance, often forgotten, but with some 1.5 million men, Germany swept through the country in a blitzkrieg lasting just a few weeks, occupying Poland alongside the Soviet Union and propelling the world into war. Having initially been under Soviet rule following Nazi Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union in the summer of 1941, the town of Lenin was quickly overrun by increasing numbers of German soldiers. Almost immediately, the Jews of Lenin were forced to work for their new occupiers, rushing them to the river and forcing them to work on the construction of a temporary bridge, over which would later cross cars, weapons, horses, and tanks. The cruelty of this new regime was unmistakable, with beatings, theft, and murder common occurrences as the rights of the Jewish community were stolen away. All Jews were forced to live in a ghetto, with 3 or 4 families living in just a single apartment. And on August 14th, 1942, the ghetto, which even in its horrendous condition had been the only space of safety left, was raided. From the youngest to the oldest, the order was given to awaken all residents and gather them in the street. Surrounded on every side, all 2,000 individuals were forcibly removed. It was a heartbreaking scene, with mothers clinging to their children whilst families tried frantically not to lose sight of each other. A witness recalling this situation commented that in this moment, everyone knew that they were being prepared for an inescapable death. They stood silently, frozen in their place. Their hearts had turned to stone, and they were unable to react in any way. Nearly 2,000 people within the Lenin ghetto were taken to a hill on the main road to a pre-made ditch just outside the town, including Faye's parents and 4 of her siblings. At the edge of the ditches, the murderers made the Jews undress, They took their clothes and opened fire on them. In less than 1 hour, the lives of nearly 2,000 innocent people were stripped away from them. Only 26 people were spared from this massacre, each due to having a particular skill sought after by the Germans. Tailors, shoemakers, and builders, still deemed useful, would be put to work for those that had just murdered their loved ones. Through her abilities and skills in photography, Faye was also spared. But yet, in another sickening turn, Faye's first job was to develop the very photographs that had just been taken of the massacre.
They gave me in one of the films, I noticed this is the trenches where my family is. And this picture is the exact trench where my family is shot. My father, my mother, my 2 sisters, my sister's 2 children, and the husband, and my 2 younger brothers.
With her only option for survival being to develop these photos, she did so. Secretly, she developed duplicate copies for herself, preserving the proof of what had just happened, so that hopefully one day she would have the opportunity to share these atrocities with the world. With 100 German soldiers and 30 local policemen based in Lenin, Faye bided her time, waiting for the opportunity to escape. 1 month following the massacre, a Soviet partisan unit made up of roughly 100 individuals attacked the German garrison, killing 3 German officers, 14 soldiers, and 13 policemen, as well as burning the ghetto to the ground. In the chaos, Faye managed to escape, fleeing to the forests alongside the other remaining Jews. She joined the Molotov Brigade, working as a medic and doing what she could with their limited resources to nurse gunshot wounds and even perform surgeries with vodka as anesthetic. When not caring for the wounded, she would put the skill that had saved her life to work, taking photos of life within this collection of individuals fighting for their liberty from the forest. When asked why she decided to stay and join the partisans, Faye said simply, "This was the only way I could fight back and revenge my family." There is little that needs to be said about these incredible photos because they speak for themselves, bringing to life the hardships of their day-to-day life, performing surgeries in operating theatres made of wood, burying their fallen and trying to find happiness within the darkness of World War II. They are made all the more incredible, however, by the fact that by directing another to release the camera's shutter once the scene had been framed, Faye herself was in many of them. For 2 years, Faye and her comrades would continue to resist the Nazi occupation, until in 1944, the ever-advancing red tide of the Soviet Union swept through the territory from the east. She had survived. Celebration and jubilation for some, but for Faye, writing about this time, it was a day of reckoning. Never in my life had I felt so lonely, so sad. Never had I felt such a yearning for the parents, family and friends who I would never see again. In December 1944, she married a fellow partisan, Faye Schulman, and when their daughter was born, they moved to Canada. By the time of her husband's death in 1992, their family had grown to 2 children, 6 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Faye herself lived to 101, passing away on the 24th of April 2021. She never parted with the camera that had been her companion throughout the war. In her words, the camera had seen everything, and that she would never like to part with it as long as she lived. When asked about which photograph out of the hundreds that she had taken was her favourite, rather than the swashbuckling images of her and her companions geared up with rifles and leopard print coats, ready to strike revenge against those who had done them wrong, it was instead one that, whilst perhaps simpler, was more unique than any other. A portrait of her alongside her family, together, happy, and hopeful for the future, unaware of the approaching storm that would change their lives forever. I want people to know that there was resistance. Jews did not go like sheep to the slaughter. I was a photographer, I have pictures, I have proof.
Here is my camera, the original camera that I have since 1939. This camera, I took pictures when the Russians occupied, I took pictures when the Nazis occupied, and I took pictures in the partisans. I would never like to part as long as I live with this camera. So many memories and so many stories and so many things happened. And this camera have seen everything. Every picture almost has it's a story, what to tell. And all the stories are my memories. So I cannot really separate one from another.
Faye's story is one of our favourites, so thank you for letting us share it with you. It's incredible that this hasn't yet been made into a feature-length film, but a special mention has to go to the short film Under Darkness, a clip of which was used in this video. The film can be found on YouTube, so for anyone who wants to watch it, I've left a link to it in the video description.